Hey everyone, Richard Metal Fan here, bringing you guys a brand new 2019 album review. And today we're going to be looking into the new album from the band Whitechapel entitled The Valley, which came out today through Metal Blade Records. Now, Whitechapel definitely doesn't need an introduction. They're a deathcore band hailing all the way from Knoxville, Tennessee. These guys have been around since 2006. And in my opinion, I think Whitechapel were pretty much one of the more better bands in the whole deathcore genre, along with like All Shall Perish, Despised Icon, Carnifex, bands of that nature. And I remember first hearing Whitechapel back in like 2008 or 2009. It was right around the time they put out their album This Is Exile, which in my opinion is still their best album, and I had a chance to see them play that album twice last year, but that's besides the point. And I've pretty much been hooked on their stuff, especially going back to their 2007, their first album, which came out in 2007, then called The Somatic Defilement, which is a pretty good album. They just sound a lot more brutal, have that little core stuff, but just it's pretty much brought forth like the new metal subgenre known as deathcore. And then a year later in 2008, they released This Is Exile, which I said was still, in my opinion, their best work. The song This Is Exile was pretty much what got me hooked on to Whitechapel in the first place. And then 2010, their third album, A New Era of Corruption, which I thought was a pretty good album. Like I thought that was pretty much like Whitechapel at their peak with that album. And then we go into 2012 with the release of their self-titled fourth album, which I thought was pretty good. It was kind of different compared to the previous three, but still has that grooviness to it, which kind of makes it stand out. But I feel like they kind of took a step further with their 2014 album, Our Endless War, which I thought was, it's an alright album, but I'll say in my opinion, I think it's their weakest album. And then we go into their previous album, being 2016's Mark of the Blade, which also kind of marks a new evolution for Whitechapel in terms of like doing like clean vocals and other different styles. And in my opinion, does The Valley live up or exceed, sort of like do some different stuff compared to Mark of the Blade? In my honest opinion, I think it's sort of like a little bit of both. Like it's still, there's some moments on this album that are just really just heavy and stuff, and I feel like some of this stuff kind of like sounds different from compared to other stuff, like with the use of like clean vocals and other styles, which kind of makes it a little bit weird or stuff. But yeah. And the production is pretty solid. I mean, Whitechapel hasn't really had bad production. Vocally, Phil Bozeman, just like his growls and just harsh vocals just sound really great. And like I mentioned on the previous album, Mark of the Blade, he does some clean singing, and I feel like he does some cleans on this album, and I actually think it sounds a lot better than on Mark of the Blade. I do give him that. Guitar wise, Zach Householder, Ben Savage, and Alex Wade just have some really great riffs and stuff. I don't know why Whitechapel needs 3 guitar players, but I don't know. They just make it sound pretty good. But especially like they have two lead players and like 1 rhythm guy. It just makes it sound pretty interesting. Bass wise, it could definitely hear it a little bit compared to with a band that has like 3 fucking guitar players. Unless if you're Iron Maiden since 1999, that makes the bass stand out. But yeah, it's pretty good. Drumming wise, don't even know who played drums on this album since after Ben Harkelode left. If anybody knows, just leave the comment below, because I can't remember it by the top of my head right now. But yeah, without further ado, let's dive into this album track by track. Now the album opens up with When a Demon Defiles a Witch, which opens the album on a hard-hitting mood, but it would be a mistake made too quick if you were not to expect the same mood throughout the album right away. And I have to admit, when I first heard this song, it did set some pretty high expectations. It starts off pretty well, as I'm stoked for the rest of the album. It has like the little heaviness, and then there's a little calm section where Phil does some amazing clean vocal work on there. And I just, like I said, I think Phil's vocals have really improved a lot over the years, which I think is pretty good. Next song on here is Forgiveness is Weakness, which is a song as hardcore and edgy as the title is. It is time to up the horns, as we have some tasty riffs, some loud screams, deep bass, and heavy drums. The subtle lead sections add sort of like a myriad of like colors to the heavy music, and I kind of like this motif to the album. Brimstone, which I believe is the the first single released on this album, which gets things heavier and going. The intro screams would be an epic display of live setting, and one thing obvious about the album so far is it sets high expectations for a massive live sound for the band. And if you didn't particularly part of this album so far, you would can't even speak today. They'd be sure that this song sets off a record performed live, and it would be fantastic. History Creek kind of caught me a little off guard, and what kind of like happened to like the heavy and hardcore vibes so far on this album, and it pretty much enters like a mix of clean music, a little noise, and a ton of groove. And the clean singing on this song is easily the finest on the album. While the instrumental sections are fine in itself, the singing takes the cake to this one, and it sort of fits well and good. And then things come back to get a little bit heavier with the song Black Bear. Good tier groovy metal with a poise of elegance. It is a great song to jump and headbang to. And like I mentioned earlier, songs off this album would make for an intense live show, and the song is really about capturing some of that live energy. We Are One is pretty much the album is back with the fast pacing. It is a good way to get the album's mood on the fast track again. The instrumental sections managed to squeeze in some groovy sections in between like the fast section before it transitioning into like a screeching solo and some blasts. A cliche, but who cares when it fits so well. It is so satisfying when the musical cliches and metal fit so well. The Other Side, which it's all right by itself, but within the album's like context, it feels so far and it's a slight miss, but that's just might be me. Third Depth, which is a return to a slower and mellow feel to the album. The song itself is a quick but insufficient breathe for the whole album, and the groove sections and the mild heavy sections are catchy, but it really just misses like that kind of factor that the album has so far. Loveless, which too follows suit in regards to the album's mood at this point, and the song has some interesting elements that keep the song and a little distinct from most of the album. And hats off to the fun drum work on this song and the album too. And then the album closes with Doom, which has a little bit more groove and some typical hardcore build-ups in the music that adds an air of like suspense that works so well to end this album. The unexpected breaks in the song redeems the album from a marginally tedious sections that haunted the record previously, and the song progresses well and ends the album on a good note and feeling. Now overall, The Valley by Whitechapel is a pretty solid album. It kind of like has sort of like those older stuff that Whitechapel has, but also contains some of the newer stuff that they had from like the previous album. So if I were to give this album a score, I'm going to give The Valley by Whitechapel a 7.5 out of 10. Yep, that's my review of the new Whitechapel, guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about it, and I'll see you all in the next video, and keep it metal.